Hi there, I'm Ed Merrison from CellarHand. I'm here in the vineyards of the Mornington Peninsula of all places with Paul Blanck's winemaker, wine grower, Frédéric Blanck, who's visiting his son Luca here in Australia. Very good to have you here, Freddie. We were talking a second ago about the history of the Domaine Paul Blanck in Alsace. Freddie's ancestors who moved there from Austria and started a restaurant business in Ribeauvillé more than 200 years ago. The Pink Elephant, still going.
Still going, yeah.
And then Freddie's part of the family started growing wines in Kientzheim, what, about 170 plus years ago now. Freddie, how long have you been in charge of the domain?
I've been in charge since 1987 on being in charge of for the viticulture and being in charge of the winemaking since 1989, in fact.
That's a long time. And you've been organic since
1990,
Yeah,
working
long time now.
more organically on always been very keen and careful about what we're doing in a vineyard. Yeah, that was always a big concern for me.
Yeah. And the what's the makeup of your vineyards then? You've got 24 hectares now.
Yeah.
So what are the varieties that you grow and in roughly what proportion?
Yeah, Domaine Paul Blanck is actually 24 hectares big. On that 24 hectares, we got 70% of our vineyards just in the Grand Cru area. So that means just in the best soil to produce grapes. On that soils, we plant mainly Riesling. Riesling is 35%, nearly 40% of the production we do, because we believe and we love Riesling.
Yeah, that's the way.
It's just the grape. As a second grape, we have Gewürztraminer, what's quite unusual for Alsace, even if Gewürz is part of Alsace history also. Gewürz is 30% of our production. Then after that, we get the Pinot Blanc. Pinot Gris comes on some other grapes, like on Pinot Noir also, of course. Pinot Noir is 10% of our production.
Yep.
Because we get very good soils for Pinot Noir also. And then a bit of Muscat, a bit of Silvaner, but it's not important. The biggest our favorite one are still the Riesling and Gewürztraminer. That's two wine we really focus on.
And here in Australia, of course, we've got the Pinot Blanc, we've got Pinot Gris and Riesling from you guys. Just looking at those vineyards that you say that on the best soils, the best slopes. So what's the kind of soils are we talking about? Alsace is of course famous for very varied soils.
Absolutely. So we can adapt. It's quite for us. It's quite easy to have different grape varieties because we get under the same climate. We can get granite soils, so real granite, rocky soil. Then sea sediment like limestone with chalk, clay, sandstone and blue marl, so real sea sediments, and then much heavier soil like blue marl on another level of clay. And then you can get also these big gravel stones you get behind the glacier. That's more in a flat part of the valley. If you drive, that's for just the Kientzheim Valley, but if you drive just 10 kilometers away, you can get volcanic soils, you can get anything, nearly anything.
Yeah, I mean that's an obviously really important part of, I suppose, the wine
It is, yeah.
the wine landscape that you have. Of course, as you say, you travel barely any distance, 5-6 kilometers, and within that time you might have passed through 3 totally different soil types, and with all these different grape varieties on all these different soils, a huge really broad palette for people to try.
Yeah.
What else would you say are the sort of the key growing features of the region of Alsace that people should know about that really influence the wines?
Yeah, the key is always wherever you grow wine, you grow grapes. It's always the same key. It's about the climate, about the soil, and about the people living at the place. That's it. That's the 3 important elements. If you just miss one of them, you're never going to grow a big wine or an exceptional
Well,
wine.
we've talked about one of them. So you've already mentioned the soils.
Yeah, we talk about the soil.
Talk about the people. Who
talk
are
about
they?
People.
Yeah.
That's we, Blanck family.
Yeah.
And you know the history, the mixing of culture we have in Alsace make us a bit different. I would say a lot different from some French people.
Yeah.
Because in Alsace we had to change nationality. People change nationality every 40-50 years nearly. They had to move, they had to fight for the country. That's why in Alsace you get very open-minded people, and that makes that our cuisine, for example, is totally different from what you find in the other side of the rivers or from the hills on the other side, because we get this mix of culture coming in our country, so that makes also a mix culture for your brain, and make it open-minded. It makes you open-minded for understand all the part of the world, and to make your own world much better.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because we often think, I mean, obviously France is a hugely diverse place. Let's not pretend that it isn't, and let's not oversimplify that. But at the same time, lots of people try and lump you in either as French or German. Which one is it? And of course, as you say, people came from all over the place to go to Alsace in the first place. Then when they got there, they found that they were French one minute, and then they were German, and they're French and German. But really, it's a huge mix, and it affects the way that it broadens your mind and broadens your approach to what you do.
Yeah, and to prove it's a wealthy place, just look how many times French fight to get Alsace and how many times German try to get Alsace.
Yeah.
It's just because that's a place to
Everyone
be.
wants you.
Everyone wants you. Us.
So we talked about the soils, we talked about the people, but the climate.
On the climate, because we're northeast of France, so that could be a bit of scary climate when you see just on a map. But northeast of it, in fact, give us a great potential, because we are northeast, we are protected by the rainfalls from the Vosges forest on one side, eastern, western by the Black forest, so we get the lowest rainfall all over France. We have an average of 500 millimeters per year, which is quite low compared to, if you compare to Bordeaux, where you get close to 1,000 millimeters. You understand why Alsace is so does have this particularity also, because we are northeastern, we protect it from the rainfalls, heavy rainfalls, but we can get very heavy winters like -10, -20. But in summer you get 35, 38, sometimes 40 degrees also for weeks, or sometimes for some vintage we get it for a very long time. So it's an extreme climate, with extreme condition, but these conditions are just perfect for the grapes we grow.
Yeah. So we're talking still obviously fairly for France, northern, fairly marginal in that sense, and obviously when we look at that in Australia, I suppose we talk about that coolness. Of course, we make a lot about cool climate here, and the freshness, the energy, the drive that you get in wines grown in cooler climates. But as you say, with the dryness that comes from having the Vosges there, I mean, which is not a set of hills, it's probably a mountain range, the big hills behind you, in the rain shadow of that, and these long autumns that really ripen the grapes beautifully. And of course, people love the taste of ripe grapes, don't they?
Absolutely.
A really, really big factor in the wines. Well, we're going to have a look at a couple more of the wines in particular in a second. So thanks very much, Freddie, for giving out the overview of the Domaine.
It's a pleasure.